What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the singles off the hit Wisin y Yandel re-release. This product is called Los Extraterrestres Otra Dimensión, and this came out in the spring of 2008. Pretty good concept to get this in particular. So back in July, I reviewed the Los Extraterrestres, which is basically in English that stands for the aliens, as far as pitches like that kind of happen. So pretty quality hit album. Don't remember as full blown. Don't remember it as full blown, but I do want to say it had some nice bops on there. It had three singles. I remember saying that I kind of would have liked for it to have had a fourth single as far as pitch like that kind of happened, but they did basically put out a couple more singles with this particular product, so it's a pretty dope concept to kind of get this here. It's some quality type stuff to kind of get this re-release. So the two singles off this particular product that were basically there were like 5, 6, or 7 songs that happened on the deluxe edition of this particular album, the Otra Dimension Type 1. So the two singles off this would be Siguelo, then Dime Que Te Paso, which is pretty good pitch. Both these songs I recommend. I'd say it's a good enough concept going to get that, but because there's only two singles, if I don't full blown, if both these songs don't completely knock my socks off, it's not going to get a 10 out of 10 score, which I like both these songs. I definitely like Siguelo. That's an obvious hit. I'd have to say a real powerful revamp of like the album getting more life breathed into that particular record, I'd have to say. But Dime Que Te Paso, while a good song, is, obviously I kind of figured that it was going to be one up tempo and one down tempo song, which is good enough. It's just kind of the concept that if you're not in this full blown kind of the mood for that particular song, it just doesn't hit as heavily. It is an effectual type one. It does better. This is a better type rendition. The singles off of the regular Los Extraterrestres. I remember the Hoy Donde Está El Amor song, which was kind of like a makeshift kind of one, more fit for like blue collar type radio. I kind of was halfway on the fence about that one, just kind of here and there with that one. That's kind of how Dime Que Te Paso is, but it does better. I would say this one's a little bit better. It's basically like it's kind of a down in the dumps type song to kind of get for relationship kind of back and forth as far as that particular kind of happens, but it fares better. It's a slower type song, but it works a little bit better. So we'll get to talking about that as that kind of happens. But so we'll talk about Siguelo first. So Siguelo in English, this particular means basically, if I didn't say this before, the album title Los Extraterrestres Otra Dimension basically stands for aliens and other dimensions. That's the concept of it in English. But basically, the lead single Siguelo off this particular revamp is called Keep Going in English. I'd say it's like a good hands up kind of mid groove dance noise. I would definitely feel like it's like a late 2000s kind of icebreaker. I would definitely have to say, and this reminds me of like Flo Rida and Pitbull, some of those type folks. Pretty good concept that it's like a definite type one. Just kind of has some of that slanted kind of dramatic type flair, but it just feels a little bit forlorn within a relative sense. But I do like the effectualness of it, just the craziness factor as to how that kind of happens. This kind of one. This feels mildly ominous, I'd have to say, but I do appreciate the concept of getting some of this. Apparently, like I don't know how many hits off of Los Extraterrestres that Wisin y Yandel had off that particular album as far as like extra backup hits apart from like the singles off of there, like Sexy Movie Miento and Ahora S, some of those type ones. But I would have to say that Siguelo is definitely another follow up hit that kind of continues to strengthen their catalog. I had to say definitely a very catchy type one that says that similar type of appeal. Like I was saying, very similar to Flow Rida, very similar to Pitbull, some of those type folks. This feels like a standard kind of MySpace rap type bop and like an electro type sense around that particular time. A little bit of traces of 303, Cobra Starship, some of those type folks, just to kind of get some of that, this real kind of mild, the early rendition of what EDM was going to morph into in like the early 2010s, I'd have to say. Do like these songs quite a bit, just an easy kind of stock hit. I don't know how high this particular song charted, but it definitely deserves some of that appeal. I know that like the Los Extraterrestres was the highest selling album of 2008 in Latin rap as far as pitch like that kind of happened, so this probably contributed to that. It was a pretty big single in the summer of 2008. A particular line that I liked off this particular song, to translate some of the lyrics on here, one of the lines on the song is where one of the lyrics where Wisin or Yandel says, I know that these idiots are all through the roof. She's going with me. Take it for granted. So I like the concept of that kind of taunt on that particular song. Some good concepts kind of get there. You appreciate that particular aspect. So good pitch to kind of have that. Just appreciable type one. Just another stock type hit that basically bolsters this album even further. So that's basically 3 out of the 5 singles released from this overall package, including the revamp. I'd have to say that at least 3 of those are pretty good dance bounce type songs going to get here. But there are 2 out of the 5 singles. The other one that basically means that Siguelo, Sexy Movie Miento, and Ahora S are like the standard dance club type songs. Then Hoy Donde Está El Amor and Dime Que Te Paso are the ones that are more homely bound and just kind of more like within the affluence of more makeshift and just kind of more blue collar work shift type fare, which is a good concept. But I do recommend this song. So just being able to say basically Dime Que Te Paso in English stands for Tell Me What Happened to You, which is a pretty good pitch about this one. This song particularly reminds me of like a similar blue funk type song to Akon's Lonely from 2004. Pretty good pitch. That was Akon's Lonely was a pretty springbound and overall surprise hit throughout the first half of 2005 and further. So that's a pretty nice appeal of that one. But this is like a hot day kind of slag. I would feel like there's some standard work shift just within the sense of just like that drear kind of where when it's like rainy day outside, but it's also the sun is out in the same aspect. It's one of those kind of rainy June hot day type feels I would have to feel about it. There's definitely like some summer heartache here, I would have to say, and this has like some pop appeal. I do feel like this is radio ready. This is another MySpace rap type one. Really reminds me of like the song that came out way out in 2017. I forget what it's called, but Despacito, some pitches like that. That same sort of Latin acoustic guitar type riffs. Just really MySpace and pop rap ready. I'd have to say pretty nice one. I'm surprised that this song didn't chart a lot heavier. This seemed like it was a big deal on Spotify. This is the most popular song off the re-release. I'd have to say it had 31 million plays compared to Siguelo's like 22 million or something like that, or 24 million. It's good concept that, and it's like some balmy day kind of makeshift, I'd have to say. So I do recommend this song, but just not as full blown, I'd have to say. It's just kind of, I do appreciate the radio appeal of this particular one, but it's just kind of one where if you're not in the full blown type funk of this particular song, it just doesn't hit as heavily. It's just kind of one, like I do at least like Akon's Lonely because I look after that aspect that he cheers up later on in the song with this one, this particular one. Although I do like some kind of mellow, bummed out type songs. Those are good to kind of get on like certain aspects. I just look after it. I feel like the production fare is just not as catchy as like some of those type songs that pull off that down in the dumps type vibe normally. It just kind of feels like, I don't know. I mean, it had to be summer. It's just kind of the aspect of just being like some rainy day kind of summer fare as far as that particular kind of happens. It's a very springy, summery type one to kind of get as far as that aspect kind of happened. But I look after it. I feel like it needed to be pop rap. But the concept of it is just a little bit, it's just very vanilla and kind of cookie cutter, I'd have to say. So that's kind of the concept about it. But I do, has its relative appeal. So, but in terms of the lyrics that I enjoyed, basically this is just a standard just kind of relationship back and forth as far as that particular kind of happens. Just the concept of just the taken abackness of like the heartbreak as far as that particular kind of happens. Just it's a good song just in the aspect, but I just didn't. The lyrics fair was just more standard on that particular song, I'd have to say. So it's good enough concept, but I just didn't see any real line that I would have felt like full blown kind of any full blown line that was like full blown blister in it, I'd have to say. But it is a good song, so that's a good concept. But so yeah, basically basically recommending a song and a half. Basically both songs out of the promotion for this particular product, a song and a half here and there with a little bit more give or take, I'd have to say. I'm going to go ahead and give this album in terms of the singles and go ahead and rate the singles of this particular album like an 8.75 out of 10. It's definitely better than expected one. I complained a little bit about Dime Que Te Paso. It's not a bad song. It's just kind of the concept that if it's not within the mood that you're feeling at that particular time, it just doesn't hit as heavily, I'd have to say. It just kind of, it's more passe. I mean, Siguelo is definitely one that can perk you up and put you in an excellent type mood, just give you something to kind of have. But Dime Que Te Paso is more relatable to like the particular mood of like the times for what it stands for as far as that kind of happens, which is good enough. I just look after it. This doesn't have as much affluence, doesn't really slap as heavily in the club as far as that would particularly kind of happen. Not really like a slow dance song or something like that. So I just look after it. It's kind of the concept. But overall, the variety of these singles off of both these albums is pretty heavily. All five of these singles, for the most part, I recommended in some fashion. I would probably say that picking up the deluxe edition of this particular album with Siguelo and Dime Que Te Paso is definitely worth it. I feel like there's definitely more strengths to Dime Que Te Paso than there isn't. It's just kind of a concept that it's just kind of a more select type song. But Siguelo is definitely, Siguelo, in my opinion, is definitely one of Wisin y Yandel's best songs, I'd have to say. Just an overall excellent type one. Just continues the bravado, puts him up there with Daddy Yankee, Pitbull, and like Don Omar with some of that electronica and kind of EDM, early EDM type sound and dance club craze as far as that particular one happens. It's another stock hit. It makes me wish that there would have been a third single on top of that, but for what it is, it definitely bolstered this album pretty well. So the Soja score, I'll go ahead and give like a 9 out of 10. I feel like it has the appeal behind it. This is definitely pretty quality. I don't know the rest of the songs of this particular product, if they had more to back this particular product up. It is social enough, does have the aspect of just some out and about. Definitely feel like the girlies are going to like Dime Que Te Paso. It's definitely some heartache as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just some standard fare and just bickering, I'd have to say. Then Siguel is just a good rump shaker to kind of get things popping as far as particular that kind of happens. So it's a good enough aspect. So definitely 9 social. So in terms of the future, I'm not really sure it's full blown what Wisin y Yandel have been up to. I know that they've at least dropped a couple music videos or something like that this year, maybe a song with like Don Omar or something like that. But I would have to say this is some good stuff here, and this re-release is definitely worth investing in, I'd have to suppose.